nice little play. But also there was a throw where, he threw it behind Harbor. Harbor had to tap it in the air and catch it, and that was not a good throw. He had a couple throws to Gage Larvadan. Nice solid throws. He also had a couple of throws that just A, bad decisions, and B, just not very accurate.
Yep.
And there was a throw in the third quarter, I think the first drive, I think on the same drive. No, it wasn't this drive. It was a drive, I think, late or late first half, where Jared Brown is crossing on third down. It's deep in South Carolina territory, and Lenore Sellers makes the throw, and Brown is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
But the ball's behind Brown. He has to turn and catch it. And when he goes to turn upfield, he slips and falls. And there's no defenders in the picture. Basically, Brown, if he's hitting stride, catches that ball, turns upfield, and at least gets the first down and keeps the chains moving.
Right.
I guess the reason I'm bringing all this up is it's a mixed bag. I mean, we've seen Linares, go, drop back, scan the field, make a quick process, and make a throw. We've seen him drop back, and either the receivers aren't open or he's struggling with the process or the reading of the coverages. I just think right now, to answer the question of our sales guy, I think it's too early to make that thought or even really break it down. Is he's played 3.5 games, Tyler, and I think there's moments we see, there's a ton of potential there, and there's moments we see, he's got a long way to go to get that right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. And I think in the offseason, there was a lot of high expectations placed on him based on the small sample size we saw a year ago. Yes, throwing a long touchdown against Furman and running a long touchdown in against Vanderbilt made everybody go crazy and excited for what the future of this quarterback spot was going to be. But at the same time, we did need to temper our expectations of what he could do right out of the gate as a first-time starter. And like you said, he doesn't have the best complement of things around him. Yes, he has a very capable running back in Rocket Sanders when he's healthy. Offensive line, not great at protection. His wide receivers haven't popped the way we hoped they were going to pop, where you have somebody that's out there making a huge difference at that spot. We're seeing potential with Gage Larvadan over these past couple games, but still, you don't have the receiving room that you hoped you were going to have at this point in the season. And obviously, you got some reliable tight ends that have done some good things at times, but the offense as a whole is just not great overall. And you can't put all that on Lenore Sellers. There are certainly mistakes that he's made, again, making bad throws and bad reads and stuff like that. But I just think he's put in a position where what he has around him does not set him up to have the most success right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's just incomplete right now because, again, he's 3.5 games in, and to your point just now, the offensive line has struggled, with protection, obviously, with more than just protection, but they've struggled to consistently protect Sellers. There's been pressures. I mean, there's times Sellers runs himself into, pass rush problems as well. But, the offensive line has had issues. The receivers, there's a consistency problem there as well. Like you said, Larvadan, there was on that drive, Larvadan had 2 catches and he broke some ankles. And you're like, that's him healthy. Okay.
Yep.
But, because of his injury situation through the first few games of the year, we didn't get to see Larvadan play. You see what you witnessed there a little bit in the last couple of weeks with Larvadan from the Akron game when he made a couple of big plays down the field. And then you saw what he did in the intermediate areas in very small space against defenders. There's something there with number 7, man. There really is. And you want to think you got to find a way to get him the ball more. And there's hope. Jared Brown has popped at times. Mazio Bennett has popped at times. But there just hasn't been consistency, so that is a thing. So the receivers and the offensive line have not helped out a young quarterback who is, again, developing to find his way. I just think that you see what Sellers can be at times.
Yeah.
I mean, he can throw it, he can run it. It's just got to the point of developing and getting consistent and learning the game from the neck up, Tyler, which is something we never talk about. But he's got to be able to process the game from the neck up, and that's the final piece.
Well, I think it's also important to note that he's played some pretty darn good defenses so far this season in Kentucky, in LSU, and Ole Miss this past weekend. And I'll make a direct comparison to somebody else that's in their first year as a starter in the SEC, and Nico Iamaleava, out there at Tennessee. And he was a highly praised guy coming out of high school, 5-star, millions of dollars in NIL, the whole 9 yards. And yeah, he went out there and tore it up against UT Chattanooga and NC State and Kent State and all that kind of stuff. But these past 2 games against Oklahoma and Arkansas, he's come back down to earth. Yeah, they won against Oklahoma, but he didn't look all that great against Arkansas this past weekend. And they end up losing that game. So again, by comparison, Lenore Sellers isn't leaps and bounds behind everybody else, but he's still coming along. And I would say Nico's got a whole lot more weapons around him at Tennessee than what
Mhm.
Sellers has here at South Carolina. And again, he's struggling. So it's not the end of the world that he's not, turned into a Heisman Trophy winner after the first month of the season. We obviously hope he gets to that point. But I don't think it's time to hit the panic button just yet.
No, and to your point of Nico, he was outplayed by Green, the Arkansas quarterback, who was a transfer from Boise State.
Yep.
Before Green got hurt, he was playing better than Nico.
Right.
So, I guess it's a great comparison to bring up Nico because he's a 5-star glamour boy, and Lenoris was a 4-star, and so I mean the expectation on Nico is even higher. And we see Nico struggling, so I just think it's a little early to make any grand proclamations on Lenoris Sellers and where he's at. I think you just have to take a step back and breathe and watch how it goes. And to another point of comparison, that Tennessee offense is so quarterback friendly in what they do as a system compared to a lot of offenses in the country, not just South Carolina. So even Nico has the advantage of being put in an offense that helps him shine.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's just go position group by position group here. Would you take Tennessee's offensive line or South Carolina's?
Tennessee.
Would you take Tennessee's receivers or South Carolina's?
Let me think about it. Tennessee.
Would you take Tennessee's running back room or South Carolina's?
Let me think about it. Tennessee.
There you go.
And which system of offense, if you're a quarterback, would you rather be in?
Josh Heupel's run and shoot.
So yeah, and you see Nico having issues the last couple of games as he has moved up against competition that's SEC style and SEC level. So I just was asked that today, and I'm like, well, let's ponder that. Let's feel like where he's at. And again, you'll see him make plays, Tyler, both throwing it and running, and you're like, wow, look at the ability this guy's got. And then you'll see times where he either struggles, trying to read the defense, or he makes a throw that is nowhere near where it needs to be. And then you go, well, he's still got room to grow.
He absolutely does. Now, if he's making these same mistakes in the Clemson game at the end of the year, and we've not seen huge steps being made as the year's gone along, then that's a different conversation. Like, okay, this guy's not developed the way we thought he was going to in year number one. What does that mean for 2025? But like I said, he's played in 3.5 games, missed half the game against LSU, didn't play against Akron, and, did what he could against a very good Ole Miss defense this past weekend, but certainly didn't get a lot of help from the guys around him either. So again, it's still kind of in a wait and see mode at this point.
Yeah. And I do believe that if the worst scenario, which you just brought up, is we're still seeing these problems in the Clemson game at the end of the year, then you've got to make a decision that in the past you probably didn't make. You would go, okay, that was year one. Now let's get going for year two as a starter because, you're probably not as far along as we were hoping, but we're going to be patient because you have a physical skill set that once we think it'll lock in, you're going to be a hell of a player. It's not the same world now. You get to that Clemson game, and let's say that Lenoris Sellers is still struggling with some of the things that he's struggling with now, and you're not seeing progress and development. You got a hard decision to make. And because, again, in this world, you got to say, okay, if we've seen enough to say he's definitely our guy in year two, or are we going to have to go out there and get a veteran quarterback out of the portal if we want to achieve what we think we can achieve as a football team?
Well,
it's a different world, Tyler.
It absolutely is. And more than that, you have to ask the question of, okay, is our 2025 starting quarterback on the roster right now? Because you've got Dante Reno, you've got, I think, Robbie Ashford still has another year of eligibility. You can always go down that road. Or do you say, okay, we don't like what we have, we absolutely need to go out and get somebody in the portal this offseason?
Yeah, so everything has been sped up in college football because of the new world order of the sport. So yeah, what you're hoping for is you get to the Clemson game and Lenoris Sellers is in a much better spot in his development, and you're seeing him grow and be more productive and dynamic, and the world is good. That's the what you want. But if you're not getting that, then a decision has to be made. And I'll pile on something else. Let's say that he's not where he needs to be, and let's say you finish the year 5-7.
Yeah.
Then you've got a coach on a hot seat. You got a new athletic director coming in with a coach on a hot seat, and you got to make a decision about your quarterback.
Oh, that'd be
the doomsday scenario.
That's a lot to juggle. Let's hope we don't get there.
There's the doomsday scenario for you, sir. So so I thought today questions to ponder after 5 games on a Wednesday is what we'll handle here on the halftime show. The next question to ponder: How's that kicker doing? Let's get
That
into that.
that was
Get into
a
that
that was
coming
a
up.
concern of mine going into the weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into that coming up here on the halftime show. We are hanging out, broadcasting live. We're doing this all week long, or yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I shouldn't say all week long. We're doing it. We did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We are broadcasting live from different churches in the area because we're trying to help out the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville who are going through obvious major issues because of the weather events we've seen here in not just here in South Carolina, but also in North Carolina as well. Non-perishable items, bottled water, canned food, toiletry items, feminine protection products, baby formula, baby food, pet food, diapers, all sorts of things that could help those folks. Please help us out. We are at Brookland Baptist Northeast today from noon to 3. Also, we're at 12 Springs Community Church in Lexington as well with our sister station B106. Please help us out. We'll come back. Let's ponder the kicking situation at South Carolina next on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. All right. We are hanging out here doing the halftime show, doing what we're doing all week, doing for a fine cause. We are hanging out here at Brookland Baptist Northeast, Summit Parkway in Columbia. We're here today from noon to 3. They will be collecting non perishable goods. Let's get the time here from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. today. So come on out, and we've talked about it. Bring non perishable items. We're helping out the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and in Asheville because they need the help after what's going on thanks to the weather in the past week and a half. All right. So we're kind of pondering questions about the Gamecocks as we sit midweek after 5 games. And the kicking situation, Alex Herrera missed a kick in the Old Dominion game, but made a bunch of very important kicks in that game. Then went along and did not miss a kick until that 48-yarder, Tyler, to tie the game against LSU at the gun.
That is correct.
So Herrera missed that kick. Then it was nothing but extra points against Akron. Am I wrong?
That is correct.
Okay, so Herrera doesn't try another field goal until the first half of the Ole Miss game. Herrera hits the field goal, no problem. Then Herrera lines up early second half to kick a 38-yarder and misses that. So Herrera has missed 2 of his last 3 kicks. He's 1 for 2 since missing the LSU game-tying kick. I guess the question to ponder is, should we be concerned about Alex Herrera at this point? He's 7 for 10 overall. Be fair, he's 7 for 10 overall. Go ahead.
He is, but in the 2 biggest games you've played so far this season, LSU and Ole Miss, he's missed kicks in both those games. This was something I brought up on Saturday on Gamecocks game day, prior to the game with Elijah that we didn't really talk about last week is like, hey, this dude, and you got in the bye week as well, hadn't kicked a meaningful field goal in 3 weeks. And that concerned me. And yeah, I made the one earlier in the game to get them on the board, if nothing else. But when he, I would say, was in a more pressurized situation, needing to put points on the board in the second half as the game was already getting away from you at that point in time, he missed it, much like he missed the one against LSU in the final seconds there, would have sent it to overtime. And look, I'm not trying to dump on the kid, but there's clearly a difference between him and Mitch Jeter that concerns me, especially for some of these games that might end up becoming, 4-quarter dogfights down to the end. If you line him up for a clutch field goal to win or go into overtime, I don't have the most confidence in him right now to make that kick.
You just hate kickers.
I do. You know what? I need to go on the McAfee kicking challenge because he's going to ask the question, have you ever said anything bad about a kicker? And I can say yes.
Yes. No, we talked about this coming into the season. And this isn't us trying to pile on Alex Herrera to say, hey, see, we brought it up, because that's not the case. We want this dude never to miss a kick. But we brought it up coming into the year that, you have an unknown kicker. Yes, Alex Herrera's been around for 6 years, but he has not had the kicking job. He almost won it a couple of years ago. Mitch Jeter beat him out in a very close fight. So we brought it up during, coming into the year, you can't take for granted your kicker is going to be good because in South Carolina, you've had a lot of good kickers. Every kicker is individual unto themselves. Plus, you got new special teams coach in Pete Limbo. Pete Limbo's gone and things of that nature. All right, so 7 for 10 on the surface is good, right? For a college kicker,
sure.
You'd be happy with that.
Sure.
But the one kick you did miss, and again, it was 48 yards against LSU, but that was a game-tying kick that you missed. Since then, you're 1 for 2. And we know this kicking thing is as much from the neck up as it is about your foot. So it is something to keep an eye on moving forward, how he does, and we will take it from the LSU kick on. How has he done since the miss against LSU? Right now he's 1 for 2. And that kick, look, let's be real. You're down 24-3. It's 4th and 5. Shane's like, yeah, if it's 4th and I almost guarantee you it's 4th and 1 or 2. Shane's going for it.
Sure.
You're down 21.
As you should.
It's 4th and 5. Right. It's 4th and 5. You're like, it's 4th and 5. We get stopped on downs. It really kills our momentum. Let's at least get some points. I'm guessing that's what's running through Shane's head. All right. And then Herrera lines up. You figure, heck, it's under 40. He hasn't missed under 40 all year. We'll get on the board. We'll at least have some momentum. It's 24-6. We can build upon getting some points, right?
Yep.
When Herrera missed the kick, they showed Shane, and he just slumped. didn't he?
Yeah,
He
he
just
did.
slumped. His head
He,
went back.
if he did not already think the game was over at that point, he surely did in that moment.
Yeah, because then your momentum totally got stuffed when your kicker misses what should be a gimme inside 40.
Yes.
And so, yes, in the big picture, oh, you missed a kick in a blowout loss. But that kick in that moment did matter because it would have given you points, and you're hoping it will give you points and B, give you momentum that you can start getting back in the football game.
Here's my concern as well is he's kicked one field goal in a true road environment setting. That was the one that gave him the 10-6 lead, going into halftime against Kentucky a couple weeks ago. Good crowd, obviously not the most hostile environment in the world. You're about to go to Alabama. You're about to go to Norman, Oklahoma. You've still got to play Clemson on the road later on this year. Nashville looks like it's going to be tougher than we thought it was going to be. Like, you're going to face some stiff crowds and some very hostile environments. And we don't know what he's going to be like in that. If he's missing kicks at home with the fans on his side, what's it going to be like when he's being heckled the entire time, trying to make a 45-yarder to tie things up against Clemson or something?
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, you're going on the road, you'll get in some nastier environments. How are you going to handle that? Especially in the back of your head, you've had one big kick to make this year. One big kick. And yeah, again, it was 48 yards. I get it. Look, I can't kick a ball 8 yards. So I'm not going to sit here and act like, kicking, man, it's not. No, I get it. Kicking is hard. But if you can do it at a high level, which is what you want from a college kicker, then you got to be able to make kicks. And there are Mitch Jeter made multiple 50-plus. I mean, his first game he made 250-yarders, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So again, not trying to pile on Alex Herrera, not trying to make something up that isn't there, but this is a question to ponder moving forward. If you get in another situation, it's 45 yards to tie or win a game. Can Alex Herrera make that kick? Now, if he does, all of a sudden, boom, the chest pumps up. He's got a lot of confidence. He can run to the sideline like Mitch Jeter did in that first game. Look at Shane Bieber and go, bleep and believe in me, coach. Bleep and believe in me.
Right.
But so far, Alex Herrera hasn't made that kick. And it is an open question until he does make it. So just something to keep an eyeball on as we move forward for the rest of the season. A question to ponder, which is Alex Herrera and what he can do in money time, because he hasn't. So far, it's only 0 for 1. He's 1 for 2 since the missed kick against LSU that would have tied the game at the gun. All right, we will be here, like I said, today at Brookland Northeast. We'll be here up until 3 o'clock. Also, 12 Springs in Lexington, B106. Our sister station is there. KISS is also here as well at Brookland Northeast. And we will be at Brookland Baptist tomorrow from noon to 3 as well. Please, non-perishable items, as many as you can get to us. There's never anything called too many. So please get them to us, as we want to help those folks out in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville and those surrounding areas. Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest, $600 now. Gamecock score special teams touchdown on Saturday. We will, 7:30 Monday morning, have a drawing on the early game. And if you have qualified, your name will be in the pot to see if you can win the dough. It's really easy. Go to 1075thegame.com. Look at the little flippy thingy on the top of the page. When you see Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest, you click there, and then you fill out the short form, submit, and you're in. Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest from Lawyer Lisa, we thank her, and also folks here at the game. Halftime show, we'll come back. Questions to ponder. How about wide receiver? Let's ponder that question. Coming back on the halftime show. No, offensive line. Let's do that one next. I just switched it up. Coming up next here on the halftime show on the game. What we're talking about is questions to ponder about South Carolina as we sit midweek after 5 games of the 2024 season. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, halftime show. As we are broadcasting live today, our location in our 3-day tour, Brookland, Brookland Baptist Northeast, Summit Parkway in Columbia. Come on out, non-perishable items to help out the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville. So please help us out. They'll be collecting up until 6 p.m. today here. Also, and Kiss FM, our sister station, is here, as well as our other sister station, B106. They are out at 12 Springs in Lexington. So please help us out if you can. We would appreciate it. All right, we're pondering questions about this football team. We started with Lenora Sellers at quarterback, how we feel about his development. Basically, he's played in 3.5 games. We just talked about the kicker, Alex Herrera. How are we feeling about Alex Herrera 5 games into his tenure as the kicker? Because it's important. You don't think about the kicker till he either makes a big kick or misses a big kick. And then the next question will be offensive line. Tyler hit it. Shane Beamer talking about the protection has to improve.
Yeah, I think it's hard to wholesale change, but I wouldn't say that we try and mix up the protections. I mean, Saturday we had some things where we wanted to get the ball quick out of Lenoris' hands. We had some RPOs where, we got a chance to get the ball out of his hands. When Ole Miss, like they're really good on the defensive line, really good, and we didn't want to sit back in the pocket all day. So in a lot of our max type protections where we're keeping a running back and a tight end in, we tried to get it where we had, 4 hands on most of their top guys, meaning, 2 people, whether it be on number 2 or 38 or whatever he wore, 89. Their best guys, trying to get multiple hands on him and trying to max protect so those guys don't beat us, move in the pocket, which we've done. So we try and mix it up, but we've got to be. That's one of the things that we're still looking at. I mean, we've just we have to be better. 6 sacks is 6 sacks, no matter how you spin it, and it's not good enough. And it's a shame because we're running the ball fairly successfully, and which should make your pass protection, I don't want to say easier, but a little bit better. And we haven't been good enough. So it's not really wholesale changes. It's just continuing to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And each week is different too. I mean, Alabama's got a talented defensive line, but their interior guys are built a little bit different and play a little bit of a different style than Ole Miss's did. And and the front seven's just different. So I think every week's different schematically, and then the personnel that you're facing also.
Yeah. Offensive line wise, it's got to get better. But we've had this conversation roughly through the entire Shane Beamer era. And this year, you have a prize young 5-star freshman left tackle in Josiah Thompson, who you knew was going to have his good moments and bad moments. It's just the way it is when you're a teenager playing left tackle in the SEC, going up against grown men edge rushers or guys with crazy, freakish ability coming off the edge. Casey Henry, he's been around for about 3 years, but he's only started 6 games in his career. So you would think he'd be farther along than Josiah Thompson, but Henry has had a lot of struggles. Torricelli Simpkins has been very good in pass protection for the most part this year. Run blocking has been a mixed bag for him. Rashawn Lee is Rashawn Lee. He's solid, not spectacular, but he's solid. And Kamar Bell has been inconsistent. He's had some good moments and some not so good moments. Is it better than last year? Sure. But does it need to be better? Yes. South Carolina is still averaging about 1.5 yards in the run game, yards before contact. That's got to get better. Obviously, giving up the sacks they have, it's not all on the offensive line, but the offensive line has to get better in pass protection. You're sitting in year 4. I mean, how much of this goes to coaching after a while? You have all these different players, moving players in and out. You had a new crew this year. Again, Simpkins, wasn't playing on, he had to move up a level where he played before. Same thing with Bell. Again, Thompson's a freshman. Henry's been in the program for 3 years. Rashawn Lee, I think he's got his law degree and his medical degree. He's been around for that long. How much of this comes down to coaching? I don't know. But we've seen a lot of different players moving in and out of this offensive line. How much of it comes down to development or lack thereof development? I think it's got to be a question that needs to be asked at some point. I know we just focus on the players, and I get it because they're the ones on the field. You perform, you make coaches look better. You don't perform, there should be a question of, okay, are these players being developed correctly? Is the system of blocking the system they can do the best? I mean, it just seems to be a thing that continues to go on with this offensive line. I think everything needs to get looked at, not just the players. Again, the system of blocking, the techniques they're being taught, coaching in general, the offensive line. I think all of that needs to be looked at because we've been watching this for 4 years in Shane's tenure. So, but you can't do anything on offense, obviously, consistently, if your offensive line can't hold their own. And that's been an issue. And this year, it's an issue again. Better than last year, sure. Still not to the level that you need it to be, though. And that's got to change. I mean, through this season, it's just got to get better. It really does. So I think everything's on the table there. And another interesting thought, I can't look it up at the moment, but I'll have Tyler look at it here in a minute. When it comes to Tree, Babalade, and Trevon Ball, how many games they've played in this year? Because with the struggles of Case and Henry, would we see more of Tree through the season? Or, because I don't know off the top of my head, and I haven't a chance to get the laptop fired up here at Brookland Baptist Northeast, has Tree played in more than 4 games? Has Ball played in more than 4 games? We know they played, but have they accumulated 4 games? Is there a bigger picture to redshirt both possibly for next year and moving forward? Because remember, both of them should have been redshirted last year, but they were forced to play. So are you maybe not going to use them moving forward unless you have to, because you'd like to give them a year to redshirt and learn and develop? And then next year, when you're having players move on, or let's say Case and Henry just does not get better through the year, then do you open up a competition for the right tackle spot next year with Tree, who saved a year of eligibility? And with Ball, you're losing both guards and your center. So saving a year of Ball, could that be something? And I'll have Tyler check the game log snap counts and see if both have played in 4 games. And if they've gone over, if they've played in all 5, then we know that we're not talking about any kind of redshirt issue. So that's another thing to throw out there as well. Tyler, do me a favor. Look and see if Tree, Babalade, and Trevon Ball have played in all 5 games.
All right, 1 second.
Let's see that, because if they have, then any thoughts of holding them off for a red shirt, unless there's like a serious issue, would be off the table. Because if you've played them in 5, then I think there's a conversation of using them more, like using Tree in a rotation with Henry, maybe using Ball in a rotation with Bell, just to help out, to put more depth, get extra bodies on the field, especially if those guys are going to continue to struggle in their spots. Maybe you need to play Tree and Ball moving forward in some type of rotation. What do you got?
So we got Tree at 2 games so far. Let's get down to guard here. Trevon Ball has played in 3 games. So both these guys still at this point in time under the eligibility for redshirt if they wanted to do that.
So we got to keep an eye on that. Maybe that's a thing that they're trying to, in a perfect world, hold them both for a redshirt year unless they have to use them. Now, I would understand that, but my question would be, if Henry continues to struggle, and look, he had his best day regarding pass blocking grade against Ole Miss. And as I rewatched it, do I think, because they had him in the 82.7 was his grade, which is really, really good. I don't know if he blocked it in 82.7, but it was his best day, to be fair to him, because he has really struggled as Case and Henry. But it might have been his best day in pass protection against Ole Miss. But if he continues to not get better, and it is continuing to be an issue, do you have to bite the bullet and, for example, start playing Tree? Because, again, you want to win games in 2024. This isn't a team that's punting 2024 to 2025. You're 3-2. And there are winnable games on the schedule, so it's not like you have no chance. All right, we're pondering questions at Brookland North Baptist Church. And we will continue to ponder to the wide receiver room. That is next. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on The Game. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game as we broadcast live, as we will all the way till 3 o'clock today at the Brookland Baptist Church Northeast. Brookland Baptist Northeast, and very, very easy to find. We're out on Summit Parkway in Columbia, collecting non-perishable items for the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina. Again, bottled water, canned food, diapers, baby formula, baby food, baby wipes, feminine protection products or feminine products in general, toiletries, pet food, any of these things that can help out those folks as they go through a really tough time, we would appreciate very much. We'll be out here till 3. They'll be collecting till 6 over 12 Springs Community Church in Lexington. They will be collecting there up until 6 as well. All right, so we've been pondering things. We're going to get to the wide receivers here in just a minute, Tyler. But first, let's go and grab our Firehouse sub text the hour to 803-404-6100.
Yeah, Thomas weighs in and says, I sit here and listen to us talking about the team in year 4 of Beamer with the narrative that the issue was the quarterback as there's not enough around him. Shouldn't we be questioning the coaching staff and what they've done in the past 4 years if that's the case?
I mean, you can, sure. No one's away from being questioned. And let's circle back to another thing, that this team is 3-2. Let's not forget something. As we look through this, especially we're focusing on the offense, because that seems to be where most of the issues / inconsistencies are. But the team is 3-2. And look, the Old Dominion game obviously was, you wanted to play better there. But remember, you went to Kentucky and curb stomped the Wildcats in their barn.
Mm-hmm.
You went to their house and beat them up in their living room in front of their family. Then you should have beat LSU. That should have been a W. But the combination of some self-inflicted wounds with the idea that the officiating was bad, those things combined to help you lose a game you should have won. And then you destroyed Akron. So you're 3-1 going to the bye, really should be 4-0. And then, look, I shouldn't say no one. I'll just stick with me. I didn't see that performance coming from South Carolina. I think that's what's kind of caught people is, losing to Ole Miss. Ole Miss was favored last time I checked.
Yes.
So losing to Ole Miss isn't the thing that is what we're discussing. It's how you lost. Coming off a bye, playing your poorest game of the season. And you're playing a quality opponent who is still in the mix for the college football playoff because, Ole Miss's schedule isn't that tough, Tyler, moving forward. So I guess, yes, we are looking at everything after 5 games. And it's like anything. If you let's say, for an example, you're half asleep, you grab the milk out of the fridge, you take a drink, and it tastes terrible, and you spit it out, and it's got a freshness date of what, August 17th?
Yeah, it's curdled and it's chunks in your mouth.
Yeah, and exactly. All of a sudden, you're, wow, I didn't know milk had cubes. How bad does it taste in your mouth until you brush it out?
Pretty bad.
It's the last thing you tasted, right? It's the last thing you
exactly.
tasted. Basically, in my opinion, this fan base just had curdled, outdated buttermilk.
Well, and
in their mouth.
In the history of South Carolina football, it's been one of those things that's been so up and down. And I said, Preston introduced me to the roller coaster of South Carolina football, over a year ago. And I see what you mean, because game to game, it varies so much. You don't know what you're going to get each and every week. So you have to go off of that most recent performance saying, okay, I guess that's what the team is now until they prove you otherwise.
Right. Because, remember, Old Dominion, can barely beat Old Dominion. It's going to be a long year, man. Going to be a long year. Now you got to go to Kentucky. Oh, geez. After the Kentucky game, oh my God. We went on the road to Lexington and punched them in the face and stole their car. And wow, maybe I was wrong about this team. Then the LSU game, everyone was so focused on, wanting to do awful things to the officials. But the idea was that South Carolina outplayed LSU and really should have won that game. So now you're feeling even better, right?
Right.
And then you do what you're supposed to do to Akron. You curb stomp them into the hospital. So now you're really feeling good going to the bye, right?
Should be.
And then what did the roller coaster do against Ole Miss?
It came to a screeching halt.
It threw you out of it. So to your point now, the thought is, oh, God, how you going to win another game besides Wofford? Can you beat Wofford? So I appreciate the text, 803-404-6100, Firehouse Subtext the hour. Continuing our questions about South Carolina football after 5 games during football coming up next on the halftime show here on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Tyler back at Mission Control, making sure we stay on the air. While me, I'm chilling and hanging out in the parking lot at Brookland Baptist Northeast, Summit Parkway in Columbia. We will be here up until 3, but they'll be collecting up until 6 p.m. here at Brookland Baptist Northeast, just like 12 Springs Community Church, also today till 6 p.m. Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. You can drop off non-perishable items there as well. We're here along with our sister station, 103.1 KISS FM, while our other sister station, B106, is out in Lexington at the 12 Springs Community Church. All right, so we're pondering questions after 5 games of the 2024 season, almost at the halfway point of 2024. The next question we will ponder, Tyler, is the wide receiver position. Here is Shane Beamer talking about the strengths and the weaknesses of his wideouts.
Yeah, they've certainly evolved. I don't think there's any question, John. They've gotten better since the beginning of the season. Again, when we talk about the details of how to do things, they're right in the middle of that, just like all of our positions are. So we have to be more detailed. But I like the way that they continue to get better. There's no question in my mind that Nick Harbor has gotten better as a player since the beginning of the season. And you could say that with a lot of guys. You know, we've actually started a different receiver the last 3 games. Nick started Saturday. The Saturday before that was Gage. The Saturday before that, Dre was one of our starters. And Mazio's been consistent out there as well. And we feel like we've got a solid group of guys. There's no question about it, that have all flashed at times. And just like every position on our roster, we're continuing to try and get those guys better. But then maybe the ones that aren't playing a lot at the receiver position, we're going to be at the halfway point of the regular season, or over halfway after Saturday. And we got a lot of football left. So we'll continue to bring everybody in that room along. But I like the progress those guys have made. I think Coach Furry's doing a great job as well with the coaching and the recruiting.
So there's Shane discussing, the fact that he feels good about where they're at. But I mean, let's be honest, Tyler. Is Shane going to get up there and say, these guys kind of stink? Of course not.
Yeah. You have to, go about it in a coach type of way. Now, when he's away from microphones and cameras, he's probably saying something a lot different about where they're at up to this point. And it's not like you have to be disappointed in what the wide receiver room has done so far. It's just, I think we all expected a little bit more than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and you look at what they have. Like I said, Larvidan in the last 2 games has shown you some stuff. He is, for the season, 7 catches, 118 yards, averaging about 17 yards a catch. He made 2 big plays against Akron down the field and had 2 nice catch and runs against Ole Miss. So there's something there with old Gage. Just got to get him healthy and keep him on the field.
And look, if he's healthy the entire season, has played in all 5 games, who knows how differently we're talking about this year. Maybe you beat LSU. Maybe he's the difference there. Maybe he opens up the pass game a little bit more when it was struggling even more earlier on in the season. Like, we don't really know about that. And obviously you can't go back and change those things, but you've seen that potential out of him. Obviously, Mazio Bennett has done a lot of good things in getting open and finding the end zone on a couple of occasions. Of course, you have Jared Brown when he's not dropping a ball or stumbling over his own feet, making plays as well. So you see the flashes of potential there. You just have not seen it all come together for somebody to really step out and become the true number 1 out of this room.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like for example, Jared Brown. Jared Brown played out of the slot at Coastal Woodley 92% of the time.
Right.
And he's not playing out of the slot at South Carolina. Mazio Bennett is. So now you're asking Jared Brown, who has played the slot for the most part, now, okay, we want you to go play wide. Is that his best spot, or is he a guy that's better in the slot, but you think you're a better football team with Bennett in the slot and with Brown on the outside? That's a legitimate question as well, especially going toward Jared Brown. And again, Larvidan wasn't healthy. And now you see him the last 2 games, the Akron game and Saturday against Ole Miss. You see something with him and you go, this could be your go-to guy.
Yeah.
Because he's got some playmaking ability.
Let me quantify it by this. When I say somebody breaking out in this room and being your true number 1, when you're faced, and again, South Carolina's been, in 3rd down and long more often than not so far this year, averaging about a 3rd and 8. when you're in a 3rd and 7 or a 3rd and 8 and you got to make a play down the field, who is the guy that you are going to be able to count on almost every single time to go make that play? I don't know if we have that guy as of right now. Could be Larvadan. We got to see a little bit more of him. We've seen flashes again from Mazio at times, but nobody definitively is there to make that play. Or, hey, it's 3rd and goal going into the end zone from the 5-yard line. I got to put it up in the end zone. Who's going to go up there and make that play? We don't know who that guy is yet.
And, we gave out some examples yesterday of guys have to make plays. You just do. I mean, at some point, you got to be better than the guy in front of you, right?
Sure.
Whether it's wide receiver, running back, offensive lineman, tight ends, at some point, you just have to win. You got to be better than the other dude. And there were times in the Ole Miss game that South Carolina, in moments when you had to be better than the other guy, they weren't better. Now, that's not the only reason you lose 24-3. We went over it yesterday. That stuff splatters everywhere. Coaching, players, the mascot, the caboose, whatever you have to spread it everywhere, because a loss like that goes all, especially when you're coming off a bye week. There were some things where you went, huh, really? But when just talking about the players on the field, there has got to be a time where you make a play, you win. Whether it's, you're a running back and you're in the open field against a linebacker or a DB, you got to make a guy miss. As a wide receiver, you got to make a tough catch with a guy draped on your back, or pull the ball in when someone's trying to rip it out of your hand to make it an incompletion. When you're an offensive lineman, you can't. You at times just have to be on that island and win the battle against the pass rusher or the defensive end. See, that thing, Tyler, is just at some point, take away all the other stuff. You just have to be better than the other guy, and we didn't see enough of that on Saturday.
No, we didn't, definitely. And again, we were excited about this room coming into the year, but we knew that it was going to be a work in progress and something we're going to have to figure out, and that would evolve as the season's gone along. And unfortunately, again, you're 5 games in, and you still haven't seen somebody separate themselves. And will that happen this weekend or over the next couple of weeks? Do you come back home and play Texas A&M? I don't know. It'd be nice if it was, but I don't know if anybody's holding their breath on that happening right now.
Right. And here's the thing. We'll get into this more. Let's get into it now. What the heck? If you look at this schedule, and again, this thing flows constantly with folks, and because it's a fluid season and teams get better and get worse as the season goes along. You're 3-2. Obviously, beating Alabama is a large mountain to climb, right? So let's say you do lose to Bama in Tuscaloosa. Oklahoma doesn't look like a world beater right now.
No.
Texas A&M has gotten better. They've only lost 1 game. And by the time they show up, if they've only got 1 loss, then you go, ooh, but that game's in Williams-Brice. At Vanderbilt looks a lot tougher than doing the season started, but Vanderbilt also lost to the Georgia School of Dentistry this year. Missouri, by the way, they're still picking up their teeth after the kicking they took against Texas A&M. Wofford should be a win. Clemson looks a lot better now than they did against Georgia, but we'll see what Clemson is. So right after the Alabama game, you're not sitting there going, oh, bleep, you got no shot. Because,
Right.
Every other game on this schedule, if you play the way you did against Kentucky or the first half against LSU, you have a chance to walk off the field with a W.
For sure.
So I get after – that loss was bad on Saturday. No one's going to sit here and try to put lipstick on that thing. That thing was hideous. But at the end of the day, you're still 3-2, and you've shown the ability to play really well at times. And if you can get back to that level moving forward, you're going to get your 6. And you're going to be able to go play. And hopefully they can play in Vegas, and you and I can go to Vegas and do the show from the Bellagio.
I got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to sit here and, man's got a Ravens hat on, my new favorite human being in the world. So, no, if you look out through the flip side, Tyler, you play the way you did against Ole Miss, you might walk off with 1 more win against Wofford.
Yeah, and again, that goes back.
Fair.
That goes back to the roller coaster of what this team is, and why we react and overreact to 1 game sample sizes, because it ebbs and flows, and it has not just during the Beamer era, but certainly during the Beamer era, as well as kind of the history of this program. As everybody tells me, I'm like, man, that's kind of a big difference 1 week to the other. Like, welcome to South Carolina football. We've been doing this for a very, very long time, and again, right now, unfortunately, it doesn't show any signs of changing anytime soon. But again, for the latest example, it wasn't good against Ole Miss.
No, and it was, and that's the point. I mean, you look at this whole SEC. Yeah, I did a little radio hit for our sister station in Birmingham yesterday, Jocks, and they asked me after what roughly a month and a half of the season, have I changed my thought of like handicapping the SEC? Coming into the year, for me, I was about Georgia, I was about Alabama. I was wait and see on Texas because how do you adjust to the SEC? We still got to see, but so far it's gone pretty well for the Longhorns. They've only played one SEC game, but so far they look like they've got the material to be on that level with Georgia and Alabama. Then you have that next level of Missouri and Tennessee and Oklahoma of, okay, what are they, right? Then you had, okay, could A&M be a dark horse? Could Auburn possibly be a dark horse? Then we, said South Carolina, where are they going to land in all this? Can they get to 6 wins? Can Uncle Sam keep his job at Arkansas? What's going to happen? I mean, we know Mississippi State's a rebuilding year and they're going to be terrible. Florida, at what point does Billy Napier's key card not work anymore? So, I mean, Ole Miss, obviously, we looked at on that second level of a team that possibly be in the college football playoff. I haven't really changed my mind on any of these teams. I still think Georgia and Alabama are the cream of the crop. Texas looks like they could move into that level as well. We'll find out about that. LSU feels like they're on that second level along with Ole Miss and possibly Tennessee. The only thing is Missouri looks like maybe last year was an aberration. We'll see.
But remember, they got off to a slow start last year and turned it on in the back half, so it's always possible.
Exactly. And one thing I think we have seen is Arkansas is better than we thought, to the credit of Uncle Sam and that crew in Fayetteville. And Auburn seems like they're worse than we thought.
Yes.
Besides that, I still feel the same about all this for the most part. So this is going to be a roller coaster ride. And if you bring your A game, I guess the point of this whole conversation is if South Carolina plays like they did against Kentucky in that first half against LSU, they can compete in every football game after Alabama. And you say, you know what, they can win.
Yeah.
But if they play like they did against Ole Miss, Tyler, they're going to be in trouble.
It's like wearing a different uniform every game. You just don't know what's going to show up each week, which is unfortunate as a fan because it's got to drive you crazy because your team's not consistent enough. And again, that's been a problem that's plagued South Carolina football for a very long time, but it's what they've come to expect, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're kind of they're the dude in the movie Split. South Carolina.
You don't know which one's walking through that door.
Personality is going to show up.
Exactly.
Or this girl I went out with when I was 19.
We don't need the
Different
story
personality
on that one,
every day.
I heard those sirens. I heard the sirens. I think they're coming to arrest you.
So that's South Carolina right now. We hope the right personality shows up on Saturday. And if it does, you got a good chance to win. But if the Ole Miss personality shows up, guess what? Could be a long day. So, but I get coming off of that game on Saturday, a lot of gloom and doom, but take a step back and look where they're at. They're sitting at 3-2 where you were hoped they would be at this point, right? Because going into the year, you thought that the Ole Miss game would be a loss, right?
Sure.
I mean, the hope was you could go to Kentucky and win, which you did. The LSU game, a lot of people thought, well, LSU, yeah, they're replacing some people, but it's LSU. Well, you should have beat LSU. So we got to get this out of our head, the brand name on these teams. We got to stop doing it. I mean, even Alabama, look, I'll say it now. I'm going to pick Alabama to win by the end of the week. And I think Alabama will win by multiple scores, by a couple of scores. I think Alabama is very talented. It's just, what happened to Vanderbilt? But we'll see. But if Alabama plays defense the way they played in the last two games, South Carolina might have a chance in the fourth quarter in Tuscaloosa. Halftime show. Hanging out here till 3. We'll talk about where we're at next right here on the game. Halftime show. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors every week. And of course, our little get together here, always sponsored by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. We appreciate all the folks that sponsor all of our cool things. So, we can stay it's kind of important to stay in business, Tyler.
That's the
We like
ideal. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, we appreciate being able to sit here and talk about sports and people actually pay us, which is insane. We'll take it. Today we are hanging out live at Brookland Baptist Northeast Community Park, Summit Parkway, I should say, in Columbia. Stop out non-perishable items to help out the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina. Please help us out. Up until 6, they'll be collecting here today. We're here till 3 for the halftime show. Also, our sister station, our buddies from KISS FM are here as well. Our other sister station, B106, they are out at 12 Springs Community Church, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. So you can stop out there till 6 as well and contribute to the cause. Yesterday we were at over there at Northeast Baptist on Sunset. Big old 54-foot truck they were filling. We're filling up here as well, and they're doing a great job at 12 Springs collecting as well. So please, if you can, help us out. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, we are pondering questions during the midweek after 5 games of the 2024 season. Tyler and I are doing that today. We've talked about basically Lenore Sellers is still a work in progress. There are some times you see Lenore Sellers make a play and you go, oh, yeah. And times he makes a play, you go, oh, no. And offensive line, I brought up this earlier, Tyler's like, when do we start questioning the coaching and the techniques and the development of the offensive lineman? Because this year you brought in 2 guys from the portal.
Right.
You got a prize 5-star freshman. So it's not just the same group of guys who have been around. You brought in new guys, and we're still seeing struggles on the O-line.
And I do wonder when it comes to the offensive line, is there almost a fear of not wanting to mix things up? Because obviously last year, the story of the offensive line, because of injuries, was the fact that we went through basically the first 10 weeks of the season with a different starting 5 basically every single week. And there's no continuity there, which we know at that group on the field, continuity, having the same 5 guys over and over again is more important than anything else. So is it kind of a case of, okay, we're still trying to get these guys where they need to be, and we don't want to mess with the feng shui of the offensive line, so to speak, because that can make things even worse? Or is it just we don't have faith in the guys behind them to step in and do better?
Look at you going fancy. Wow. Breaking out the thesaurus.
I'm a very well-educated man, Terry.
I
got a piece of paper on my wall that says I'm smart. That cost a lot of money.
That makes one of us. I got a piece of paper on my wall about how I got bailed out of jail. Anyway,
Did you frame that?
Yes, I did. I was proud. Yeah, I was 18. I was proud. I'll tell you my my incarceration story one day. Lasted about 6 hours, longest 6 hours of my life. I thought I was in big trouble.
So that's where you got the tattoo.
Exactly. So anyway, that's my thing with the offensive line, and it goes a little bit deeper. Are you coaching them to, and are you building an offense, especially run game, to what they do well, to their strengths, to their blocking capabilities? Those are just questions, because again, everything should be on the table, because this offensive line thing has been a thing for 4 years. At some point, you got to take a look at, and I'm not saying Shane hasn't, but every little nook and cranny of this has to be really taken a look at because of these issues. Because if you can't get the offensive line right, nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
And that's just being honest.
Yeah.
We've talked about wide receivers. We feel like there's stuff there, and it feels like it's getting better, but we still need some consistency. And it'd be nice from game to game to game to have a guy or two you can rely on to make plays. But it's there. You just gotta. It has gotten better, but it still has to improve. So we've discussed all that. One other thing, real quick, and then we'll move on to Shane talking about the penalties, because that's got to get better as well. Is when you watch Rocket Sanders, like Saturday against Ole Miss, didn't play much in the first half at all, right?
Right.
And because remember, he's still obviously not 100%. Because if he's 100%, we see what happens. He's out there toting the rock. But in the second half, he started to play more, and he started to get the football. When you watch him run, Tyler, and it's nothing against anyone else in that running back room, or that we've seen it running back here in the last couple of years. But man, there's a difference watching a Rocket Sanders run the football than it is to all these other guys, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And we knew that coming in. There's a reason he was one of the best running backs in all of college football when he was at full health. And you and I have, broke down the numbers several times that, he was taking on contact pretty close to the line of scrimmage and able to break through that and get good yardage out of it. And the games like LSU, where he's finally able to get to that outside, get a good block on the edge and really run out into green grass. He's very hard to bring down and very hard to stop. It's just getting him to that point that's been the struggle this year, because the protection has been so bad and the run blocking has been a work in progress. And obviously we don't know how much longer this injury is going to linger for him. But if you want to pull an upset this Saturday, you're going to need him as close to 100% as possible.
Yeah, because again, Alabama's defense has given up a ton of stuff in the last 2 games. And with Rocket, like when he was right, you just see the little things. It's not just, okay, wow, he's quicker and faster and more physical or more explosive than the other guys right now. But the other thing, just the little things, like the vision where you'll see him, get a handoff and have the vision to cut to the right hole or open space, or he'll make a guy miss really quick at the line and then go pick up 3 or 4 yards out of what would have been a -1 for most guys.
Yep.
You just see the difference in Sanders. So a healthy Rocket Sanders is going to help this football team. Absolutely. And you're right. You're going to need him in Tuscaloosa if you want to try to pull off that upset. All right. Penalties have been a thing. Not to go dig up the rotting corpse of LSU, but yes, the officials, some of those calls were hideous and ridiculous and horrendous, but there were legit things that were called on South Carolina that we continue to see. And let's hear Shane Beamer talk about the penalty issue, because where's South Carolina again, Tyler, regarding penalties? Where are they ranked?
They are 119th in the country, averaging about 75 penalty yards a game.
I asked Tyler that because Tyler did a nice deep dive we're going to get to in a second. First, here's Shane Beamer discussing the penalty issue.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. The ones that bother me, obviously, are the pre-snap and post-snap. Penalties, do we want to be the least penalized team in the SEC? Absolutely. Does that mean that if you're the least penalized team, you're going to win? No. I'm sure you guys are aware, because y'all do y'all's analysis and breakdowns and studies of our penalties. So I'm sure you guys are aware that last season, the 3 most penalized teams in the SEC had 31 wins between them. 2 of them won 11 games, and the other one won 9 games. And they were the 3 most penalized teams in the SEC. And the least penalized team didn't go to a bowl game last season. So you're exactly right, and I'm exactly right. The penalties make me sick. The penalties are going to happen. It's the pre-snap penalties that make you want to throw up. And it's the post-snap penalties that we had on Saturday that we can't have. And the last one of those I remember that a player had, maybe I'm wrong, was at East Carolina, my second game as the head coach, over on our sideline. We got a taunting penalty. So we've been good with the post-snap. It's the pre-snap where we got to be better. You understand that some penalties are going to happen. Some penalties get called that probably aren't good calls. But what we try and do is in practice emphasize technique, where when we're doing any kind of blocking drill, we're screaming and yelling, get our hands inside. Today, we've done this all along, but we did a whole lot of, as you can imagine, in practice today. So our defense doesn't jump. Not that we're all of a sudden starting that this week. We've been doing that as long as I've been the head coach here, but we clearly haven't done a good enough job of it. We show video of penalties. Here's why this is a penalty. Torian Gray in front of the whole team. Here's a pass interference penalty. So we all hear what's the technique that we need to play with right here so we don't get this penalty. Lonnie Teasley, hey, we got a holding penalty right here. What are we teaching right now so everybody's on the same page about what the penalty is? So we're looking at ways to emphasize it better. It's too many. You realize that penalties are going to happen. But to answer your question, I think it's just constantly educating, holding guys accountable, which we do, whether it be pre-snap, post-snap, during the snap, and then just really just trying to emphasize and teach better than we have over throughout the week, meetings and practice. So hope that answers your question. I'm sorry.
All right. The pre-snap stuff and the post-snap stuff. We're going to get to the post-snap next segment. But let's focus on what you did, Tyler. You dove into the whole breakdown of the penalties. And let's hold that to the next segment because we're getting ready to run out of time on this segment. So we're going to get Tyler's deep dive on the penalties. We will look at one of the post-snap penalties that happened on Saturday as well. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We are rolling up until 3 o'clock. Football in the 1 o'clock hour here on The Game. What we're talking about today as we roll through football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors from Brookland Baptist Northeast, Summit Road here in Columbia, as we collect non-perishable items to help out the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina, going through the issues they are because of the hurricane / tropical / weather event that we've seen here in the past week and a half. So please bring out non-perishable stuff. Everything is welcome, no matter if it's one bag, a crate, a keg, whatever you're bringing of stuff. We appreciate it. We're talking about right now. We're pondering questions on South Carolina on a Wednesday after 5 games in the college football season. We started talking about penalties in the last segment. I want to move into this segment. Tyler, you have the breakdown of the penalties for South Carolina so far this year. Go for it.
Yeah, so I went back through every single game and noted who committed what penalties. And the interesting thing that sticks out to me, because in South Carolina does play a lot of younger guys on this team, it's not just them. Like, yeah, Mazio Bennett has 3 penalties, a holding and 2 offensive pass interferences, which we know those were a little bit suspect calls, but nevertheless, they got called at the end of the day. But it's really a lot of these veteran guys that are making the mistakes too. I look at Brady Hunt. He's got an ineligible man downfield, which has been a consistent problem for this team on offense so far this year. He's got a holding. He's also got a personal foul. Obviously, go to the defensive side of the football. Eamon Worry has a face mask on sportsmanlike conduct. He has a pass interference. Kyle Kennard leading the entire team with 2 personal fouls. Again, we know one of those is controversial, as well as 2 offside penalties. So it's a lot of these veterans that are making these mistakes, not young guys that haven't been around the game of football for very long. Like, it's guys that know what's up and are still running into these problems.
Yeah, the offsides penalties were legit, and they hurt, and we saw them again Saturday, guys jumping off sides defensively. The Mazio Bennett, that offensive pass interference call Saturday was such a pile of hot garbage. It was unbelievable. They even showed the replay, and they're trying to look for the penalty on the replay, and they're going, we see nothing.
But at the same time, when you garner a reputation, whether it be as a team or as a unit or a player for having specific penalties, you're going to lose that benefit of the doubt. Where if it's a close play, like a pick play or something like that, and maybe Mazio Bennett did not commit pass interference by the letter of the law, but the officials looking at it saying, this guy's already had a couple on him so far this year, he's probably guilty, whether they want to admit it or not. Those kind of things do happen, and that could get you popped for that later on in the season as well.
You know what officials do? I don't care if it's umpires, referees, officials, they anticipate calls.
Sure. They do a scouting report on every team just like we do.
And when they anticipate something is going to happen, and they will throw a flag because of their anticipation at times. And whether it's in the moment or whether it's they're doing a scouting report in their brain, they know you have a lot of ineligible men downfield. You commit offensive pass interference, whatever the case. Now it's ingrained in their head what they're going to be looking for, and then they'll anticipate a call on the field. And like that Mazio Bennett call was so ridiculous because Bennett did nothing. But earlier in the game, Nick Harbor had an offensive pass interference that was legit. You can't stop and box dudes out.
Right.
You got to run. A pick play is to run in the way of the defender, not stop and block the defender or in any stationary way box out the defender. So that's part of this as well, is you aren't going to get a lot of benefit of the doubt if you're a team committing a lot of penalties, and the officials know coming in if you're a highly penalized team.
And look, we know officiating is not perfect, and you run the risk every single game when you put it in the hands of the officials if it does indeed come down to that. So you try and avoid that as much as you can. But the things that, as Beamer talked about in the clip we heard a couple minutes ago, it's the pre and post snap penalties, the things that are absolutes. There is no debate about that. If you jump off sides before the ball is snapped, it's going to get flagged. If you move as an offensive player before the ball is snapped, you're going to get flagged for a false start. If you're doing dumb celebration penalties after getting a sack down 21 points, you're going to get flagged for it. These are the things that drives coaches crazy because those are very easily fixable.
Speaking of celebrations, post-snap, when you're down by 3 scores, Dylan Stewart got himself a sack and celebrated it with a gun gesture. A shooting gun gesture. That will get you a 15-yard penalty every time. Here's Shane Beamer, his thoughts on that post-snap penalty that was dropped on Dylan Stewart after Stewart got the sack.
I don't know if I don't have a hard, fast rule in that. if you do this, that this is going to happen. We try and talk to our guys all the time about how we handle our business and how we do things. And I know you're specifically asking about the Dylan Stewart play, which is unacceptable. And Dylan Stewart feels awful about that play. Dylan Stewart's a really good kid. And Dylan Stewart's mom feels awful about that play. And she was obviously very emotional after the game. And I know all the social media angels that have never done anything wrong want me to just tar and feather him out there in the middle of 5 points for his mistake. It doesn't quite work that way. Was he held accountable in this building? Yes. Was there punishment within this building for what he did? Yes. But we care about Dylan. We love Dylan, and we got Dylan's back too. A lot of people don't, but the people in this building have his back, and he knows he needs to be better, and it was unacceptable without a doubt. But he's a young kid that got caught up in the emotions. There's a lot. I'm not excusing it at all. There's a lot of things that built up before that play. Some back and forth that started in the first quarter. And in the end, he let his emotions get the best of him and did something he can't do. And, we try and educate him and also realize he's a, 18-year-old young man, and he's ours, and it's our job to help him just like a parent would do with a child when a child makes a mistake in a lot of ways. But certainly we've talked about as a team, though, that there's a right way and there's a way that we want to handle ourselves on the field in the class that we want to play with. And if something repeatedly happens, then there's something you have the decisions to make. But, we feel good about how we've handled that situation.
Obviously, Dylan Stewart shouldn't have done it. I mean, that's not even a point of conversation. And should you have any crazy celebration when you're getting your tail whooped? Of course not. You do what you do, and you just go back to the huddle and enjoy it. Inner enjoyment. But here's the other thing. Tyler, you went through all the penalties.
Yep.
How many 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalties does Dylan Stewart have this year?
Let's see. That is the only one.
How many times has Dylan Stewart been flagged for an unacceptable celebration after doing something really well?
That's the only one.
So this is the first time Dylan Stewart has done this. It's not a repeated problem. He's not one of those guys who is always stepping over the line you don't want them to step. Matter of fact, Dylan Stewart, all we hear about is how good of a kid he is. He's very quiet, very unassuming guy. We've seen him with the media, Tyler. If you can get more than 10 seconds out of him on an answer, it's a miracle. He's not that kid. He had a moment.
At the end of the day, this is a teaching moment, not only for him, but for the rest of the team. And like Beamer said, I mean, I don't think we want the guy tar and feathered and humiliated in 5 points, but he's got to know that you can't do that because, like you said, there's no gray area. You're going to get flagged 10 times out of 10 and twice on Sundays on those kind of things. And the rest of the team, hopefully, and we don't know what was said behind the scenes, and Coach Beamer's obviously not going to tell us what that punishment is, but hopefully it sent a message to everybody else on the team. You got to be careful with these kind of things because we're already a heavily penalized team. We don't need any more unnecessary ones that are going to potentially cost us more yards.
Right, because let's say that game wasn't a 3-score blowout. Let's say it's a 1-score game. You need the ball back. You're down 4. Let's say that's third down. Stewart gets the sack, and now you're going to make the opposing team punt. And you get the ball back with a chance to go take the lead, and then he does that.
You just gave him a free first down.
You gave him a free first down. That's really the teaching moment. You know what? Every now and then, you know what an 18-year-old acts like every now and then, Tyler?
An 18-year-old. Yes.
And Shane, I get what Shane's going with the social media thing, and I understand it, and I know it bugs him, and I understand being a coach and have it bug you when you got a kid that you think is a really good kid, and he's a hell of a player, and he had a moment, and now all the do-gooders in the world of social media want to be a do-gooder. I understand that, but it's such a small percentage of people. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of even talking about them. They're not worth it. There are people in this world now, and again, they've always been here, but now we've given them the door to be themselves in front of everyone and not just in your neighborhood, right? Just let those people go. They're not worth it. Shane, they're not worth it, my friend. Just move on and not let it bug you, my man. Dylan Stewart's going to be just fine. Just fine. All right, Firehouse Sub text the hours next 803-404-6100. Brooklyn Baptist Northeast. We're here broadcasting live up until 3 with the halftime show on the game. Time to get our firehouse sub. Text the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tyler? Head off the old text line.
Yeah, got a couple people on the text line in reference to Dylan Stewart's, sack celebration penalty. They also bringing up what he did later in the game, where he did the same kind of gesture at teammates, and that isn't getting talked about as much. That did happen, and I think that kind of goes back to you kind of need to address that right in the moment when you did it after the sack, whatever was said to him after that on the bench or by the coaches or whatever. And we're not privy to that information. It wasn't enough. And again, he's faced his repercussions since then, but that's something that, again, I think Beamer and company do have to address directly when it does happen, so that it does not happen again, specifically within the same game, where again, that was towards his own teammate. So it wasn't as, focused on, but still something you can't continue to do on the field.
And again, the lesson here, and we appreciate the text because you're correct on the text line, that the thing about that one, and I guess we didn't give as much credence because it's on the sideline with his teammates. But here's the part again, you got to learn. It's part of being 18. You did it on the field and you got penalized, right?
Right.
You might, and while he was doing it with his teammates, maybe he was saying, "This is what I did, and I got the penalty," or maybe he just kept doing it for whatever reason with his teammates. We don't know. We're not there, right? We're not there. But it has to be addressed, and both things have to be addressed because they go together. So yes, and look, we haven't seen any evidence of Dylan Stewart doing other things on the field to get a 15-yard penalty in that type of way. We haven't heard any things about Dylan Stewart in any way, shape, or form that would make us think that he's going to be any kind of a problem or an issue with that type of stuff. But he did have a moment that has to be taught, and he had, whether it was on the field or on the sideline, you just can't go down that road. You just can't do it.
Right.
So you are correct on the text line at 803-404-6100. We appreciate the Firehouse subtext the hour. All right. Also, we have our Twitter X poll for today. Elijah's quite excited about his poll question today. How many points does South Carolina need to hold Alabama to for you to feel fully confident in their chances to pull off an upset on Saturday? 25-30, 20-24, 10-19, below 10. Right now, and we just started this about an hour and a half ago, we've already got 170 votes and over 1,000 people have viewed it. We appreciate you like always. Right now, the leader, what do you think the leader is, Tyler? Below 10, 10-19, 20-24, 25-30. Don't peek. Don't look. Don't cheat,
I'm
sir.
not peeking, I promise. I'd say probably in the 20s, right?
10-19, 39%.
Okay.
Yep. And the comments, I knew these were coming, and this was always makes it funny. I think we win if we score more points in Alabama.
Well,
and another one.
Was that the ghost of John Madden?
Yes. And then another one less than we score. And then we have someone who says below 10, our offense is bleep. I was ready for this one, 0. No one put that one in yet.
That'd be significant if they did.
Yep. So that's where we're at with the poll question. Yesterday's poll question: what concerns you most about the offense at this point? OC/play calling led the way easily at 59%. And again, we appreciate it. Over 38,000 people viewed it. We had 6,045 votes. Thank you so much for your participation, like always. We talk about this all the time. In the SEC, really good offensive teams score roughly 30 a game, if not more.
Yeah, typically.
But it's around 30 on average, right?
Yeah.
So if you are going to beat a good offensive team, you know that their average is 30. You obviously want to hold them under their average, but to get them under 20 is pretty impressive if you're averaging 30 a game.
You're going to have to steal possessions in this game. If South Carolina does not get any takeaways in this game, in my opinion, there's no way they win. Takeaways were a big part of Vanderbilt winning this past weekend against them. And if South Carolina can't take the ball away from Alabama, I don't think they can win this game.
Well, the other part about it is you got to stop Alabama's explosives.
Yeah.
There are very few teams in the country that generate more explosive play down the field in the run. Hey, how you doing? Great to meet you. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate it. Thank you. That generate more explosive plays in the run game and the pass game than Alabama. They live on explosives.
Yes.
And if you can shut down explosive plays and force Alabama to methodically march up and down the field to beat you, that's another formula. You're right, though. You got to force turnovers.
Yeah.
You got to hold.
I was going to say, to be exact, Alabama is 17th in the nation in overall explosive plays. That's any play that goes 20 more yards down the field.
Yeah, they are heavy in getting big plays, both in the run game and the pass game. So, yes, there's two keys we'll talk about in the next couple of days: stopping Alabama's explosive plays and forcing turnovers. So those are a couple of the keys to being able to hang in there, maybe pulling an L in Tuscaloosa. Tyler also has another stat regarding Kalen DeBoer that's going to make you feel more hopeful than you are. That's coming up. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry, is coming up next on the Halftime Show. We're at Brookland Baptist Northeast. We'll talk more about why we're here next on the game. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Look, we're getting older. We're guys. Things that used to just go great don't go great anymore physically or mentally at times. And it might be something as easy as low testosterone. Maybe you're freaking out. Don't freak out. Or maybe stop yourself from freaking out by going to the men's clinic. Call 803-875-MENS. Set up a free confidential consultation with Dr. Dan and the staff. Tell them what's going on with you. If they think it could be low testosterone, they will do some lab work. If it is low T, they will put you on a program that specifically is designed for you to make you feel and get to be you again. It could just be low testosterone. I know you're a guy, you don't want to talk about anything because we're men, we're rugged. Just call 803-875-MENS. Go in, talk to them. They're not going to tell anybody. If it is low testosterone, they can help get you back on the right road. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We are at Brookland Baptist Northeast on Summit Parkway. We will be here up until 3 o'clock, but they'll be collecting non-perishable items for the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina up until 6 here. We are also hanging with our sister station, KISS FM. Our other sister station, B106, is out at 12 Springs Community Church in Lexington, right there on Sunset. They're also collecting there at 12 Springs up until 6 o'clock. Please, if you can give, we would greatly appreciate it. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Obviously, we'll get back to talking South Carolina. We will ponder a couple of more questions before we get out of here, as we've been doing that all day long. But let's focus a little bit on what's trending at 2 outside of our world. Some NFL notes real quick. Houston Texans have placed Nico Collins, their big play wide receiver, on IR. Collins leads the NFL with 567 receiving yards. He's been a big cog in a productive offense in Houston with C.J. Stroud. It's a week-to-week injury is what DeMacio Ryans, the head coach, says. So basically, you put him on IR, you're going to get him rested for 4 weeks, and obviously the bigger picture is have Nico Collins healthy to roll the rest of the year after he comes off IR. But look, you got Stephon Diggs, you got Tank Dell, you got a couple other guys that can help you out at wide receiver until you get Collins back. So it's not the end of the world, but again, you're not as good without Nico Collins.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a hit. But like you said, this is a very deep wide receiver room and just great offense all around that, may struggle a little bit in the short term, but this is a team that should be in the playoffs once again and potentially could make a nice run this year in year number 2 under DeMeco Ryans with CJ Stroud at quarterback. So having Nico Collins as healthy as possible a couple weeks down the line definitely going to benefit them more than trying to force him to play now.
Yeah. Other wide receiver news. We've got a lot of wide receiver news and what's trending at 2. Devontae Adams is expected not to play for the Raiders this coming up Sunday versus the Steelers. Adams has been out with a hamstring injury. Also, rumor is he has requested a trade. We also heard that, remember, before we heard about the request, that the Raiders were taking calls on trading Devontae Adams, which they should do. We went over this. You need to trade Devontae Adams to get some kind of draft capital back. You should have never made the move in the first place. It just made no sense. And to the point of Devontae Adams, look, he's a hell of a player. I mean, he might not be now that it's been a few years later and he's getting around that 30 age where receivers a lot of times decline. This is a guy who wanted to go play with his best bud.
Yeah, totally.
And when he, and this is not second guessing, when he went out in front of the world saying he wanted to go play for the Raiders to be with, Derek Carr, I said this. We've all got really good buds, right? Really good friends.
Right.
I got a best buddy of mine. He's been my best friend since we were 18 years old, went to high school together.
Yep.
He's my best friend still today. I don't want to live with him. Ever. We do that, though. When we're younger, hey, man, let's move in together. It'll be really cool. We can be together all the time. We can hang out. We can chill. It'll be fun. It'll be a blast. We can do this, that. It's all a great idea until you actually do it, right?
Oh, yeah. No, there's something about spending more time around the people that you think are your best friends that ends up going bad. I roomed with 3 of my friends for a week in D.C. in 8th grade, and we all hated each other by the end of the week.
Exactly. And look, Derek Carr and Devontae Adams are still friends, but my thought was it wasn't about going to be with your bud. It's about, are you really going to put your professional career in a spot where the only reason you're going there is to play with your best bud?
Right.
Your goal is to go play for a team that can go win a championship. It's where you were in Green Bay. Or it's about going to play for a team who is going to be competitive and winning every week and putting you in the best spot to produce at the high level you typically do produce. That you should be looking at those things and not, dude, I want to go play with my best bud. It's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be rad. We're gonna have a man cave. There's gonna be some chicks. That's not what you do if you're Devontae Adams, and it's been a disaster. They got rid of his best bud after 1 year, Tyler.
Yep.
So Devontae Adams, we'll move on. By the way, one of the rumors, which I thought was really funny, New Orleans, who the quarterback of the Saints is?
Well, it was Derek Carr, not at the moment.
And now he's hurt. Now there's a rumor that Spencer Rattler could possibly get the start at quarterback for New Orleans if Derek Carr can't go this weekend. It won't be Jake Haener. It would instead be Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, that's something that I think surprised a lot of people, because when you go back and watch the preseason and reading things coming out of Saints training camp and all that kind of stuff, it kind of seemed like Spencer Rattler was in the lead for that backup role behind Derek Carr. They decided to go with Jake Haener, who again has been in the league for a couple years, but for whatever reason he's been the number 2 guy. But it does seem like Spencer Rattler at least maybe has a shot to get his first start here soon if the Saints do decide to do that.
All right, so that's where we're at with that whole situation with the Saints and Spencer Rattler. Wouldn't be surprised to see Rattler get a start before it's all said and done, especially if Jake Haener is ineffective starting for Derek Carr. We'll see what's going on. The Saints, by the way, were 2-0, averaging 45 points a game. Now they're 2-3.
Yeah,
just
pretty big shift. And you and I talked about this yesterday. I know they only lost by 13 to Kansas City. That wasn't a 13-point game. They got bludgeoned for most of that game.
Yeah, and look, I know they've had some injuries on the offensive line. I get it, but still, the Saints are back to being the Saints, which is a mediocre franchise. All right, 2 other stories in what's trending at 2 in our first segment, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. And we're going to get back to Shane Beamer talking about his offense as Shane met with the media yesterday. All right, you watched George Pickens play at Georgia.
I did, yes.
George Pickens had a reputation, and I'm going to try to be nice because, I've tried to mature as I've gotten older. It's kind of a goober, kind of a goof, kind of a diva.
He famously threw a Georgia Tech defensive back into a brick wall, so yes.
He's a loose cannon. How does that sound?
He's a lot, but he's a really good player.
Well, remember George Pickens last year didn't show effort in blocking, which caught the wrath of his teammates in Pittsburgh. George Pickens has had some issues as a pro that make you scratch your head because of either immaturity or lack of some type of mental functioning.
Yep.
See, I'm being nice. Look at me being nice and trying to be a nice guy.
I think that's a fair way to say that.
Well, the NFL is reviewing the explicit language worn on the eye black of Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver George Pickens during Sunday night's loss to the Cowboys for a potential fine over the violation of the league's uniform policy. You're saying, Terry, the uniform police, seriously? Would he have one sock higher than the other? Oh, no.
Which they will get you for.
Yeah, I mean, I knew a lot of times they're the people who are the uniform police, a lot are ex-players. I knew one of the guys. They're serious, man. You have a sock, higher than another sock, you could get fined. This one's not that simple. Pickens' eye black had a message on it that said, quote, "Open bleeping always." And that bleeping was one of the magic bleep words you don't really want to be throwing out on your eye black. It was written in silver and black. According to league rules, Rule 5, Section 4, Article 8 states that players are prohibited from wearing or displaying otherwise conveying personal messages either in writing or illustration. Also, come on, man. You're on national TV and you put that message on your eye black. What's wrong with you?
Did you also see what he did at the end of the game too?
I missed that part.
So at the end of the game, as the clock's hitting 0, the Cowboys player that's running by him with the ball in his hands, he is taunting him some kind of way, saying something to him, and Pickens just kind of grabs him by the face mask and yanks him down to the ground. Which again, the game's over. It's not like you can get a penalty for that, but again, it's just kind of a all around bad look for what was a rough day for him. And he's frustrated in this offense. It's very clear, the Justin Fields offense there up in Pittsburgh is not exactly explosive by any means. And who knows if Russell Wilson's ever going to be healthy enough to play in it anytime soon. But things are not going well for George Pickens right now.
And he's handling it very maturely. Here's the other part of it, too. Pickens played in a career-low 34 snaps on Sunday, declined post-game interviews because, again, to me, I've always said the mark of a man is how you stand up in bad times.
Right.
And Pickens is showing, again, he's showing his self. Again, look at me being nice. Here's what Mike Tomlin said about the eye black. Tomlin basically said after the game, I don't know what messaging you're talking about regarding his eye black. I don't have any outlying issue with his effort. I didn't have any outlying issue with his effort. He did only play 34 snaps. Pickens has had some problems with effort in the past, pouting, moping when he's not getting the ball or getting targets. Again, a wonderfully talented human being, but he can't get out of his own way. And here's another example of George Pickens deciding to get in George Pickens' way. It's craziness.
And that's one of those things, because again, highly touted guy coming out of high school, obviously had a lot of success at Georgia. You wonder at what point did he really start getting the type of coaching he needed for those kind of things? Because here's the thing: when you're successful and as accomplished of an athlete as a guy like him is, they're going to let things slide. And I don't know what his situation in high school was like, but they maybe put up with a lot of stuff they shouldn't have because he was so good at catching the football and scoring touchdowns, being a highly touted recruit and all that kind of stuff. So maybe he didn't get in those formative years of football, at the high school level, that kind of discipline that he needed to not make these mistakes. Because again, it happened at Georgia. It's now happening in the NFL. And if Mike Tomlin can't get you in line, I don't know who will.
And what you'll do is you'll attitude your way out of the league.
Oh, real fast.
You just will.
I don't care how
if
good
you're
you
not
are.
out there, right? I mean, the league. Look, like Terrell Owens, hate Terrell Owens. I was a T.O. fan for the most part. I mean, some of the things he did, I was like, really? But I was a fan of Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens lasted in the league for a long time because he was a high level Hall of Fame player, right?
Right.
What happened to Terrell Owens as soon as his production started going down?
He was gone.
His phone didn't ring. That's what happens. And if you don't have high level production, this league will not put up with your nonsense. So George Pickens is working his way possibly out of the NFL.
Trying to is very big.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
I'll try and interrupt us.
Speaking of press conferences, let's go back to Shane Beamer real quick, Tyler. Let's get to Shane. Let's go to cut 5 from Shane talking about the offense after what happened Saturday against Ole Miss.
Yeah, just offense, just like offense, defense, and special teams. Game ends on Saturday night, and the assistant coaches have their process. And then I think I mentioned to you guys on the teleconference, I was in here Sunday morning early, and I watch the tape multiple times before I meet with the offensive staff at 11. And when I meet with them at 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings, I'll talk to them about, what I see and issues and what we need to do going forward. And that's every week. And then at that point, the offensive staff has had those meetings as well. And then we talked on Sunday about, let's look at, what we're doing. Let's look at who we're doing it with. Do we have the right people in the right places? And then let's look at how we're coaching it to be done, because we weren't good enough on Saturday. And how do we finish drives better? I told the team this morning, I think we had 7 drives on Saturday where we crossed the 50-yard line and we got 3 points out of it. So when you cross the 50, you're basically 15 yards away from being in field goal range. And for whatever reason, we didn't do a good enough job of finishing, and we haven't all season. I know we're not good enough on third down. So it's really just taking a step back again and saying what, who, and how we're doing things. And then let's also look at what we're doing in practice. Let's look at how we're teaching it. Let's look at how we're practicing, because I don't think there's a lot of things that I looked at on Saturday and said, well, that was a horse crap scheme. Like, why are we doing that? Or why are we calling this? To me, it was more just the details and the execution of how we're doing it. And, if we have a mesh concept called on offense and the linebacker for the other team opens up and walls you, we got to know that we just can't run right down the middle of the guy twice, because you're going to get called for offensive pass interference. And that's what happened. So let's really hammer down the details of, okay, if they do wall us, we can't run right through the guy. We got to be better about talking about how to avoid the guy and whatnot. Or if we have this run scheme called and they play a little bit of a different technique than maybe we expected on the defensive line, how we can block this play no matter what they line up in, if that makes sense. So that starts in practice with how we teach and how we script and how we call things. And we've tried to do, an even better job of that this week, so we can not so much go back to the drawing board, but be better at executing Saturday morning, I guess, than what we were last week.
We're going to come back and discuss what Shane just brought up about the offense. There's two points that I think we want to get into offensively. that we will hold for the next segment. And also, we'll continue with what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Brookland Baptist Northeast is where we're at on Summit Parkway. Please help us out. Bring in any non-perishable items to help the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and also Asheville, North Carolina. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. Nobody knew him. It was great. Oh, halftime show. We are live. Brookland Baptist Northeast on Summit Parkway. We'll be here till 3. But the collecting will go on till 6. Non-perishable items, whether it's canned goods, bottled water, baby formula, baby food, pet food, toiletry items, feminine protection products. Tons of things needed to help out the folks in Greenville, Spartanburg, and in Asheville, North Carolina. Also, our sister station Kiss FM is here as well. Our other sister station B106 is at 12 Springs Community Church in Lexington on Summit. So stop out there as well. They'll be collecting till 6. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Hit a couple quick things on what Shane was talking about the offense. Tyler. One is we've been seeing like the issue of illegal man downfield a lot, right?
Right.
And that's a timing thing because the offensive linemen typically you're taught whatever, teams like some teams will be like, whether your internal clock, you count to this and go, right?
Right.
That's kind of what's taught for offensive linemen, and every team teaches it different, but it's a timing issue. And in these RPOs, if things aren't run in a certain rhythm at a certain time, you get offensive linemen going downfield. Or maybe they're thinking that Lenoris is going to throw it, or he's going to run it, and then he throws at the last minute. We saw that against Ole Miss, where Lenoris is rolling out. It looked like he was going to run, then all of a sudden he shoveled it off to Josh Simon, right, the tight end.
Yep.
So sometimes these are the kind of things that happen to cause illegal man downfield. The bottom line is it's been happening way too much this season for the Carolina offense. That's got to stop in the timing issue. Either, it's the whole play, and we can forget pointing fingers who where, but the timing of that play has got to get crisp to where you're not having this issue.
And again, those are the kind of things that are fundamentals, things that you can improve on in practice and work on, try not have those issues, which again is why it's so frustrating to still be having them 5 games into the season.
Yes, and that's one thing with the offense. There's some timing things that just need to change. And the offensive pass interference, Shane talked about it. That's stuff where you can't stop on a guy like you're blocking him or you're boxing him out. The idea of a pick play is not to actually stop and set a screen. That's illegal. But if you are running crossers or however you're setting up your pick sequence, you're just getting in the way of the opposing DB or linebacker.
You got to make it look like an accident.
Exactly. You are running your route and, oh, no, I ran too close to that guy. Gee, I'm so sorry. That's how you do it. And that's something that's got, again, these are little things that have to, after a while, you do have to step back if you're Shane and go, okay, do we need to teach this a new way because this isn't getting through? And it's just got to, those are a couple of things that really have to start getting smoothened out because you cannot continually have penalties that are going to hurt you.
Right.
Again, the Mazio Bennett offensive pass interference call in the second half was a garbage call. But the point is there have been a lot of these that aren't garbage calls. They're legit calls, and you've got to stop doing them because that one, for an example, went from it took away a Brady Hunt catch. So instead of being at like 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 4, now you're at 3rd and 23 or 24. You can't have those things happen to you when your offense is a work in progress. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. So Robert Saleh is out as head coach of the Jets.
Yes.
Look, we knew that the hot seat was very hot in New York for Robert Saleh, and he needed a fire extinguisher for his pants. We got it. But that being said, the timing of it was a head scratcher. Here is Aaron Rodgers on Sunday post-game after the 23-17 loss to the Vikings, discussing the state of the team after the Jets dropped to 2-3.
The most important positive to take with us is if we stick together, because there'll be a lot of people outside the building who won't be sticking with the Jets. So we stick together. I still have a lot of confidence in this team. I think it's a team that's going to make a run. Now, whether that run starts next week, the following week, or whenever it might be, I'm confident in our guys. I'm confident in leadership and confident we'll get this thing straightened out.
Well, he's right on one thing, that Robert Saleh is outside of the building now and no longer sticking with the Jets.
That's right. It's very interesting. I've been reading stuff about this firing of Robert Saleh.
Very
and a lot of people figured
weird and fishy things going on there, huh?
Yeah, the timing of it's very bizarre. But from what a lot of these insiders are reporting, that it's not Aaron Rodgers, that this was Woody Johnson, the owner. And look, if it's Aaron Rodgers, we go, well, that's not really a good culture. But Woody Johnson doing it when he did, I don't think that's a good culture either. But Woody Johnson's not a great owner. No one's ever going to put Woody Johnson's name and great owner in the same sentence with the Jets. There's a reason why they haven't made the playoffs in 140 years. Here's the thing. I believe that it was Woody Johnson. Now, could Aaron Rodgers walked into the owner's office and screamed and yelled and begged and pleaded and tied himself to a tree and said, "Don't fire Robert Saleh"? Sure. Did Aaron Rodgers do that? My guess is no. We'll start there.
I will say the presence of Aaron Rodgers is what ends up leading to this decision, though. It's not. It may not necessarily be Aaron Rodgers saying, "Hey, I want you to fire this guy before he gets rid of my buddy Nathaniel Hackett." But the fact that Aaron Rodgers is on your team, if this is any other quarterback, then this probably doesn't happen.
Well, your expectation clock kicked in a ton, right?
Yeah.
You spent draft capital. You're spending a lot of money in the cap and all this stuff to have Aaron Rodgers. And I believe this. Let's go down the road. Woody Johnson just decided he needed to make a change. The game that got Robert Saleh fired was a 10-9 loss to Denver at home. That's a game that got you fired. There's no way you lose to a team that has -7 passing yards at halftime. There's no way you lose to a team with Bo Bleepin Nix as your starting quarterback. There's no way you lose to a team that can't get out of its own way on offense the way Denver can. That was the loss that got Robert Saleh fired. Then you go and you lose to a legit, for right now, Minnesota Viking team that's undefeated. That loss doesn't get you fired if you beat Denver. If you go out and beat Denver by 2 scores and you lose 23-17 to the Vikings, Robert Saleh still got his job. The Denver game got you fired. And that game was hideous and awful, and you deserve 4 losses, and you deserve relegation to the CFL for losing that game. But here's the thing. You're 2-3. You know, if you win this coming up week, you know you're right there in the race in the AFC East, because right now the team leading the division's 3-2.
Right.
You're not out of it by any chance. And if you think the change in leadership by upgrading Jeff Ulbrich to the job is going to magically fix something, maybe it will. Maybe there's something about Jeff Ulbrich that I don't know that's going to make him the greatest interim head coach in the history of the world.
Well, that's another odd thing about this is the Jets are still very much in we're trying to win this season mode. A lot of times when you fire your coach mid-season, it's okay, we're going to go ahead and punt to the next year and just try and get a jump on hiring the next guy. But no, you're sitting at 2-3. You can still accomplish a lot this season, but now you've moved somebody into the interim head coach role that has never done it before at any level of football. That does not seem like the best idea.
Well, here's the other part is your biggest problem. You fired the head coach, but you didn't get rid of the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, the problem with this team is the offense. And again, he's impenetrable because he's Aaron Rodgers' guy, but firing Saleh doesn't suddenly make Nathaniel Hackett a great play caller.
No, he's still a bad offensive coordinator and a bad play caller, and you're going to keep him in there because he's Aaron's boy. And that's the problem. The problem is you're not taking out the issue. And that's the issue. And really, this is the thing. And maybe this conversation was had by Robert Saleh. Maybe Saleh pulled Aaron aside and said, "Hey, your boy, it ain't working." I mean, there was talk about replacing Hackett in the offseason. So it just has a smell. It has a smell. All right, greatest day in the history of the world is next on the halftime show here on The Game. Greatest day in the history of the world, Tyler Head, which is October the 9th. We are hanging out live. Brookland Baptist Northeast, Summit Parkway in Columbia, just collecting non-perishable items for the people in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina, who are still going through some challenges as they're trying to find a way to piece their lives back together the best they can after going through what they went through here in the past week and a half. Like we said, bottled water, canned goods, baby formula, baby food, diapers, toiletries, pet food, feminine protection products. Any of those things, bring them by. We appreciate as much as you can bring. Or if you only bring one bag full, that's fine too. We don't care. Everything is welcome. Like I said, we'll be here till 3. They will be collecting till 6 here also at 12 Springs Community Church in Lexington on Sunset. Our sister station B106 is there today, and they're hanging out. They'll also be collecting 12 Springs till 6 o'clock. Also here hanging with us is our sister station Kiss FM. All right, Tyler Head, greatest day in the history of the world. Here we go. Old school. 1943. You remember this guy. Bob Hornerschmeyer.
How could I forget?
We love the Hornerschmeyer. Bob Hornerschmeyer. On this day in 1943. You ready for this? You know
Go for it.
You know what sport he played? You know what sport he played?
A badminton. I don't know.
Close. He played. He won the World Jacks Championship. No, he threw 6 touchdown passes, an NCAA record for a freshman. He was a freshman and threw 6 touchdown passes in 1943. Indiana beat Nebraska 54-13, and then Scott Frost was fired. No. Anyway, you're asking who is this Bob Hornerschmeyer guy? Interesting. Freshman, he played for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Okay.
And as a sophomore, he played for the Indiana Hoosiers. As a junior, he was the quarterback of the Naval Academy in 1945. Led the NCAA in total offense and passing yards in the 1943 season. Played professionally for 10 years as well in the NFL and the AAFL, which was a professional league that had the 49ers and the Browns, who then went to the NFL. This guy was a Pro Bowler in the early 50s, and the Professional Football Researchers Association named Hornerschmeyer to the Hall of Very Good in 2008.
Pretty
Not
good.
the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Very Good.
That is a
Bob
long last name,
Hornerschmeyer.
by the way.
Hornerschmeyer. HOERNSCHEMEYER.
I imagine his teammates probably had some nicknames for him we can't say on the radio.
Yeah, we can't. How'd you see the back of that jersey with that name? They probably didn't have the names back then, thank God. All right, I got to get one in personally. I very rarely do it. This day in 1966, the Baltimore Orioles swept the LA Dodgers to win the World Series in 4 games. Frank Robinson was the MVP, also was the MVP that year in 1966. My dad, Dean Ford's favorite team of all time, the 1966 Baltimore Orioles.
That was when Cal
sweeping the LA Dodgers.
That was when Cal Ripken was about halfway through the consecutive starts, right? 1966.
He was in his early 30s.
Yeah.
Yes, 1966. Yeah.
I just assumed he's played for every Orioles team ever.
Yeah, he was there when they first showed up in Baltimore in the 1950s.
Well, he
yes.
laid the bricks at Camden Yard.
Absolutely. And he also built Memorial Stadium. So anyway, the Orioles in 1966 on this day win the World Series. A couple other things in the greatest day in the history of the world. 1982, Al Del Greco kicks 6 field goals. Auburn beats Kentucky 18-3. All the Auburn points on the foot of Al Del Greco, who had a long NFL career as a kicker as well. On this day in 1988, Dennis Eckersley, for a short period of time, arguably could have been the greatest closer in the history of baseball, except for one pitch to Kirk Gibson. Dennis Eckersley saves all 4 games in the American League Championship Series for the A's in 1988. Then they went on and got upset by the Dodgers in the World Series. Also, 1993, you remember Kerry Bender, don't you, Tyler?
I wasn't alive back then.
Well, guess what? Unfortunately, I'm a lot older than you. Kerry Bender rushed 33 times for 417 yards. That set an NCAA all-division single-game rushing record. He played for Coe University or Coe College. 69-7, they won that day.
I think Ashton Genty might have a shot at that record sometime this year.
Yeah, the way Ashton Genty's going, it's crazy. Okay. Here's 2 more for you for the road.
Okay.
2004. Texas Tech beat Nebraska 70-10. The worst loss in Cornhusker football history.
If that fan base had not realized the 90s were over at that point in time, I think they realized it that day.
114-year history of Cornhusker football. That was the worst loss. A 60-point. Not only was that 60-point beatdown bad, but it was by Texas Tech.
Conference rival.
Not Oklahoma, not Texas, Texas Tech. And finally, speaking of Texas and Oklahoma, 2004, Texas loses to Oklahoma 12-0. That was the first time Texas had been shut out in 282 games, ending the longest streak in America.
Wow. Have they been shut out since then?
Probably not.
Let's see. See if I can find
Probably not. See if you can check that out. So, hey, we got a minute. Let's do two more. 2012 on this day, Jerry Sandusky is sentenced to at least 30 years in prison in the child abuse case and the scandal that obviously rocked the college football world, led to the end of Joe Paterno's time at Penn State, and Jerry Sandusky sentenced at least 30 years in prison on this day in 2012. We will not talk about that anymore because I will say a lot of terrible, awful things about Jerry Sandusky and Penn State, so I'm going to move on. Final one, 2016, Tom Brady returns from his 4-game Deflategate suspension, passed for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was the dumbest suspension ever, by the way. He got suspended for more games for deflating a football than some guys get for felonies.
I famously cursed myself when it came to Deflategate because the whole thing was ridiculous. It was a trial talking about broken cell phones and all this kind of stuff, and he gets 4-game suspension. Okay, whatever. I said by the end of the year, I really hope the Patriots win the Super Bowl, so Roger Goodell has to hand Tom Brady the Vince Lombardi trophy. I did not know that was going to come at the expense of my favorite team. So I regret saying that.
Nice work by you. It'd be great, Dan. We got a post game. So, Dan, what do you attribute this loss to? Tyler Head. He cursed us.
I did it. It's me.
There's the greatest day in the history of the world. All right, Firehouse Sub, text the hour. We'll get to that at 803-404-6100. Also, we'll check our Twitter X poll for today that we have posted up as well. We are hanging out today, Brookland Baptist Northeast on Summit Parkway, and we are collecting non-perishable items to help out the people in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina, who obviously have had their world turned upside down because of the severe weather events of about a week and a half ago. We're looking for whatever you can help us out with when it comes to canned goods, bottled water, toiletry items, feminine protection products, pet food, baby formula, baby wipes, baby food. I'm trying to think of whatever I could miss. Anything else in that realm, non-perishable, that we can put together to send to those areas and help them out. We are here till 3 with the halftime show. They will be collecting till 6 here on this site. Our sister station, KISS FM, is also here. Our other sister station, B106, is at 12 Springs Community Church in Lexington on Sunset. They will be collecting there till 6 as well. We'll be doing this again tomorrow at Brookland Baptist in Columbia. So we got that going on. Come back at the Firehouse Sub, text the hour, and check out our Twitter X poll as well. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, moving this thing till 3 here on the game. Time for our Firehouse Sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. What you got there, my man?
Yeah, John weighs in, and this is obviously in reference to what we're doing with collecting stuff for Hurricane Helene. Says also remind people that manual can openers are also something that's very much needed because, of course, if you don't have power, then you can't use one of those electric ones.
Mm-hmm. Excellent text. Yes, manual can openers for the obviously if you have canned goods, you need a can opener. So that's a great text. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. 803-404-6100. Also, our little Twitter X poll is going on. How many points does South Carolina need to hold Alabama to for you to feel fully confident in their chances to pull an upset? It's 25-30, 20-24, 10-19 or below 10. Right now, leading is 10-19 points at 36%.
Beth also asked on the text line, can Bama get negative points like in fantasy football? That'd be pretty helpful.
That would be very helpful. Yes, that would be great. So, speaking of the defense, we've focused so much on the offense today on our questions to ponder on Wednesday. Defensively, look, if you hold Ole Miss to 27 points, you keep them under 30, that's a good day at the office because it's such an explosive offense. But that being said, there were some busts, and Ole Miss got some big plays in this game. And there were some guys who've been playing very well, especially the back end of the defense, who had some issues, maybe for the first time all year. Let's hear Shane Beamer real quick, Tyler, talk about the defense.
I think our ability to rush the passer for sure. We've done a good job. I don't want to jinx ourselves, but we've done a good job for the most part of stopping the run. And we've done a good job of pressuring the passer. We play an attacking style of defense here. It's why Ole Miss was double moving us so much the other day. We play aggressive in the secondary. It was why they were utilizing the snap count to try and slow our pass rush down. We know that we have to be better, but I think that's the main thing is consistently stopping the run and rushing the passer. I think certainly jumps out on tape. We've got older defensive tackles like we've talked about, and we've got talented defensive ends, but then the way our linebackers are flying around. And then I like the way our secondary is playing too. I know we gave up the 2 deep balls the other day, but they won a lot of what we call 50-50 balls, meaning it's you and the receiver and it's one-on-one and somebody's going to come down with it. And they won a bunch of theirs the other day for sure too.
Judge Collier was really good on Saturday. That might have been Judge Collier's best game.
For sure.
To be honest. Now the flip side, O'Donnell Fortune, who has been very good in coverage all year, had a rough day. His lowest coverage grade of the year, and forget grades, just the eyeball test. Fortune got beat down the field by a Trey Harris with a deep ball. That was that 66-yarder. There was a blown coverage, lack of communication between Fortune and DQ Smith that led to the Jordan Watkins deep ball right at the end of the half, which was huge, by the way.
Right.
It's 17-3. That blown coverage or miscommunication between Fortune and Smith, that was a 41-yard catch. And that led to the Ole Miss touchdown that made it 24-3 at the half. And then on the Juice Wells catch and run for 29 where DQ, hit Wells and the ball fell out of Wells' hand, went through the end zone and became a touchback. Fortune slipped. It wasn't a great move by Wells or some wonderful route. It's just Fortune fell. And Wells was wide open on the slant. So Fortune had a rough day all the way around, and then you can't have communication issues in the back end. And going back to what Shane said, on the deep pitch and catch of Trey Harris, they double move Fortune. And Fortune went to jump the route that wasn't there. They run the double move, and Harris is by Fortune and beat him he had 5 yards on him when the ball was thrown.
Right.
So, again, the defense, you hold Ole Miss under 30, you're doing a good job, and the defense held up as well as they could when the big picture is you give up 2 turnovers and you also stopped on downs 3 times. You're putting your defense in not the best positions at times. So the defense, they did well, don't get me wrong, but there were some things within that game that you don't want to become a thing.
Yeah.
And so
the defense is obviously the strength of this team. And if you put them in good situations, they're going to give you opportunities to win. Obviously, you have to help them out on the offensive side of the ball. And, if you're giving Alabama, only 50 or 60 yards to go to the end zone on Saturday, you're going to give up a lot of touchdowns, doing that. So everybody's got to do their part on that. But the defense is obviously what's going to carry this team if they're going to be able to win these games coming up.
And pass rush wise, Kyle Kennard didn't get a sack. I think he had a sack pulled off the board because of a holding call.
Because they accepted that holding call.
Yeah, they accepted
which
the holding
everybody,
call, right.
We were all questioning on Monday as well, like why you made it 1st and 20 and second instead of 2nd and 17. That didn't make any sense.
I didn't understand taking the holding call either, because Kyle Kennard had a sack that got wiped away because of that, but had a good day rushing the passer. The best pass rush grade on the team at 78. Tonka Hemingway was at 76. Dylan Stewart 75. Dylan Stewart had a really nice game besides the penalty. He had a sack, also 3 pressures. Tonka Hemingway gave some heat in the face of Jackson Dart with 4 pressures. So, pass rush might not have got a ton of sacks, but did bring a total of 14 pressures on Jackson Dart.
Right.
And Ole Miss got the ball out quick, to be fair.
Yep.
All right, again, continue to please give and help us out. We will be at Brookland Baptist tomorrow in Columbia, Brookland Baptist Northeast, and at 12 Springs. We're still taking donations for the rest of today. Tyler, fine work. Halftime show, we're done. The postgame show is next with Jay and Elijah here on The Game.